I'm CK. Tonight we've got a big one. This is the Vector Wave from RYK Modular out of London. It is FM synthesis, vector synthesis, and a 16 oscillator, fully polyphonic synth, all in one. You don't need an external VCA, LFO, and so on. It's all in here. It's a big unit, looks interesting, looks like it'll be a fun addition to the rack. So let's dive into it, see how it goes together, and see how it sounds. Hope you enjoy the video. Big old bag. Let's open her up and take a look. Here's the user manual. Lots of words and pictures, good. Tuck that under the workbench for much later, I think. These are all stuck together. Ah, a black power cable with a white stripe indicating the 12-volt rail, negative 12 rail. Put this away for right now. What is this? This is a big piece of plastic. It's square, not hollow. We'll figure out what that does later. But first, set this aside a little bit and look at the front panel and circuit board. And get them apart. Here's the front panel. Where's my pokey thing? We've got a couple of holes for something or other. Something or other here. Vector wave, envelope LFO, modulation, ABCD, vector, Q, and menu. I'm sure it has a lot of things to configure it. Volts per octave, gate, out L, out R, so it's stereo-ish. M1, M2, M3, M4, don't know what that means right now. Looks like there's a MIDI connection. They do say, what do they call it? What does he say? MIDI input for a spaghetti-free polyphonic setup, velocity after touch, and MIDI CCs available as modulation sources. There you go. And there's also an expander module. I didn't order that because I didn't know it existed. So that's what the front panel looks like. It's got some studs on the back for something or other to space the board out probably, but we'll see. You know, it's interesting. This looks very big, and it's still, I don't know how much power it's going to suck out of the bus. I didn't look at the power requirements when I ordered it. I hope I don't have to pull stuff out of the rack to make this work. Ah, well. So here is the main circuit board, and as you can probably see, it's got a great many large surface mount. These are controllers, and there's lots of other chips and components already surface mounted on the board. So it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot. There's two switches here. One says reset, one says firmware. Maybe you can reflash the firmware if you want. We also have a bunch of electrolytic caps on the back. I hope these are all good. I mean, I hope they haven't been damaged during shipping and shifted. Don't think they did, but we shall see. So, we're not going to be doing any surface mount. It's all done for us. And in here, looks like we've got something or other. Probably looks like a dot matrix display. Yeah, these are dot matrix display chips or units. That'll be interesting to put together. That's always fun. We've got their sticker It'll go on the sticker wall. We've got a little envelope here with something in it. It's got, that is the red faceplate that'll go in there like that to give it the distinctive red pixelated look. Here we've got some switches, look like very soft switches, soft press switches, I think. Oh yeah, those are nice, I like those. Some LEDs, a big ol', what is this? Big ol' something. Amtech AMSRB1, I don't know what this is. Something potted in there. I'll look that up, maybe, and figure it out. Some LEDs, and there's a little switch that won't be on the front. It'll be on the back here somewhere. I think it may be, go here. It's a MIDI indicator here. So maybe that sets the channel or something. I don't know. We'll figure that out as we go along. Count them, 2 power connectors. Oh, I didn't even notice. Oh no, they're not they're not both power connectors. The power connector is here. This is for expansion. That's the expansion board that we're talking about. I will take a look at that after I get this done. I may order that too and let you see that when that comes in. Here we've got a bunch of knobs and a right angle jack, tip ring sleeve, and some clear plastic spacers. Here's our pots, standard pots, except this one, what is this? What is this guy? This is, oh, this is they've got a little joystick. This is the little joystick thingy. That's kind of neat. I mean, I'm sure it's a variable, two-dimensional variable resistor. That's what I'm going to assume. Yeah, this is, they're both 10K. They're 10K on each side. Okay. That's good. Put the pots to the side. Here's jacks and some pin headers and some black screws and VCO style panel nuts for the jacks. So these are mono. This green one should be a stereo jack. That's interesting. Big old USB connector. Probably, I'm going to say this is to program or flash the processor, microprocessor if you want. And here are a bunch of washers, which I ain't going to use. I'm an anti-washer guy. And this is a disc cap that I dropped on the floor a couple of weeks ago and just found it. So that's all the bits and pieces. Not a lot of soldering to do. But we'll get the build guide up and the soldering iron heated up, and we'll put this thing together. First assembly step is to cut this piece of plastic in half. We'll see, it's 10 inches. So 10 divided by 2 is going to be, let's call it 5. Get that right at 5 inches. Cut that in half. There, phew, first step done. And they're almost even. Next thing is we're going to work on the LEDs, the matrix, which oh, there they are. Pull the plastic film. Now, you'll see in a second here why I'm not going to push these all the way through right yet. Come on, guys. Participate in the exercise here. Thank you. What we're doing is we're taking these two pieces of plastic that we cut, and we're going to slide the two pieces under these panels to give them the space, I assume to give them the space they need to go flush against the front panel. Oops. I'll raise this last one up a little bit. Come on. Okay. Now snug them down and move the plastic snug against the legs is what I'm going to do. Now push these down, seat them well. I'm sorry, there was a little delay there because their instructions are a little unusual. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of put this thing together. Where is... Oh, here it is. So what all this is about making sure that the LED matrix fits very snugly against the front panel and evenly. So we're going to take our little screws, so I'm going to measure this. Oh, where's my metric side? So that's 10 millimeters. That's 10 millimeters. That's more than 10 millimeters. I got to bring this side down a little bit more, which means I'll probably be bringing the other side up a little bit. Let me ease up on this side a little bit. I may speed this up a little as I get this just right, so if things start going fast. Okay, now I've got 10 millimeters on both sides, which is great. Now, as I've said before, whenever you're working with a board that has pre-installed surface mount components, practice really good soldering iron discipline. It's very easy to accidentally touch a component that's already been installed, or more critically touch the leads, and you can accidentally move a small resistor or capacitor off its solder points, and you won't notice it, and that can be very frustrating to debug later. Okay, they're all soldered. I'm gonna double check all of them. Now we'll set the front panel aside for later. The build guide doesn't explicitly say this, but at this point we can take these spacers back out. They will no longer be necessary. I'm double checking, looking at this side of the board to make sure I'm seeing solder flow along all the legs. This one does not. Didn't wick in. There it goes. That looks good. Okay. Next up, now we'll put the two power headers on the board, or box headers, because as we noted, one of them is for the expansion board, so they're not both power. Where did that... You know, I'm sitting right here, I'm not moving, and I lose stuff. There we are. And there's the box headers. Now we're going to do that thing that I didn't know what it was. It's a little DC converter. Let's see, where does it go? It doesn't go there, it doesn't go there. Where does it go, little buddy? It goes over here. There's a dot, which doesn't really matter, because the way it's positioned on the board, there's only really one way to put it on, so don't worry about the dot. Now we'll do the joystick. Flip the solder pad over so the joystick stick can go in one of the holes I built into it when I made it. This is another piece that we will want to make sure is fully flush against the board. So I will do one pin. So that side's flush. Make sure this other side is flush. Now, as I said before, you need a lot of solder discipline to do this, and the build guide also emphasizes it at this point. This pin, and this pin, and these pins, and these pins, if you look, there are surface mount capacitors almost touching them. So be very careful with your soldering iron tip. Phew! You sure don't have any breathing room on that side. We're going to put the 8 encoders and the push buttons and the LEDs, but first we'll do the encoders. Okay, we're going to put the jacks on now. Please fold over the pins of the green and black jack on the back of the PCB where MIDI lettering is printed. Oh, that's the ground pins. Oh, I see. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't understand why I was saying that, but that's because this micro switch is going to go here, and the ground leads on the MIDI jack and the, what is that other one? On the M4 jack will be in the way. So that's why we're folding these over. But we also want to make sure we don't touch the pads for the micro switch pins. It's still not great. He crammed a lot of stuff in here. I'm going to just double check the fitment on this. Yeah, it still doesn't go all the way down on the board, but it's better. Okay, we've got all that in. Now take everything else and flip the board over and put the strip, take the panel back off, and then lay the unit on top of the remaining sheet of sponge, and then making sure the switches making sure the sponge pushes the switches firmly down against the circuit board. That's a good way to do stuff, but again, I'm not going to do that because I'll just hold them and solder one pin as I like to do to get things in place. So there are not panel nuts for the encoder shafts. There are only panel nuts for the jacks. Let me double check my count. 1, 2, there. So we don't have panel nuts for the encoders. I don't know why that is. I don't particularly like that. I mean, that's why he's got the screws here to connect the front panel to the back to the circuit board, because you're not holding them together like most eurorack or other modules where you use the panel nuts to secure the panel to the circuit board. We're not doing that here. We're using screws and no panel nuts on the encoders, which, you know, I guess. So I've got all the encoders in. Now one thing I've got to point out again, I mean, here's the MIDI jack, and do you see, I mean, that pin is right on top of that diode, and that one's right on top of that. I believe that's, I don't know what it is actually. So you just got to be really careful on this board. I mean, all the jack pins are so close to the surface mount components. Yeah, there's a little washer on the joystick. This flat black piece of plastic, I am going to put that on because that just makes it look prettier. And one of my switches came out. Thank you, switch, for jumping out. Because I haven't soldered them yet. Obviously, I've just soldered the encoders so far. Okay, everything's back in place, and that little washer is in place for the joystick. Now I'm going to take 2 panel nuts and secure the 2 jacks that I just soldered down to keep the panel in place while I'm soldering, and keep it level while I'm doing the rest of these, soldering the rest of these jacks. The panel is going to come off one more time so I can solder the micro switch on the back, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Now, get in here. I got to tilt this because my light is at a bad angle right now. That's a good angle. Okay, that's all the jack soldered, I think. Now we'll get all the LEDs through their front panel positions, double checking that they're all polarized the same way. Well, they all went in pretty good. Didn't take much adjustment at all. That's nice. But again, these LED leads are almost directly on top of these resistor leads. I mean, come on. If you're going to mix surface mount with through hole, you've got to plan better for this. Now we'll finish this guy up. So first we're going to put all the knobs on, and we put the spacer has a hole in it, so we drop a spacer in there and push it onto a knob. Pretty straightforward. The spacer's in there so the knob doesn't interfere with the threads on the encoder. So I'll speed through this. Next we will put the rest of the jack panel nuts on. And we will put the knob on the joystick. This is a 3D printed part. And it slides on, kinda. There we go. Now we've got our joystick working. We'll grab the power cable, and this is the power connector. That's the expander connector, don't forget. And it's keyed, but you can always check that the stripe goes here. So that's the front, side, back, other side, top, and bottom. Now we'll put it in the rack, and hold on. First, I'm sorry, there's some calibration to do. Got a nice USB to micro USB cable. So now we can go ahead and do our thing here. It's already plugged in to my route master. So what I want to do, hold in the firmware button, hit reset. Shows up on my desktop. Then I drop the cal onto it, cal file onto it. I think it worked. No, it didn't. I didn't drag it right. There we go. It's going on. And now it's filling in all the dots as it should. And then we're going to do joystick calibration. 404, 408, that's good. Done. Okay, now we're going to go to ADC cal. We'll do the first one, which is gate, CV input, M1 input, so we will be going over there. There's no confirmation of anything here, so that's a little, there's no little dot showing it has gotten it right or not. Go over to 3, go over to 4, What's next? Oh, now we put 5 volts. Connect the free end to your of the jack cable to your 5 volt reference source, then the other end to volts per octave. So we're good there. Push the bottom right knob and start the calibration procedure. Okay, so it thinks it's done. Now we do P voice. It doesn't actually have P voice, it says load-P, so I'm going to assume that's what it means, and we'll, yeah, and there we go. You can see a line of dots coming across here, which means it's loading the voices from the firmware, from the calibration pack into firmware on the board. So that's good. Again, I'm not sure I got those inputs calibrated because there's no visual feedback saying, yeah, you got something. So I don't know. I may go through it again if this doesn't work correctly. Done. Okay. Done is done. And now I can do the whole firmware, the actual firmware, which is, and now it did that, so it booted itself up. Now it should be running. I don't have an output here, so I'm gonna plug in some earbuds here if I'm getting anything. Definitely getting something. Okay, so we may have something going on here. So I am going to disconnect all this and put it in the rack and see if we can get some real calibration, some real sounds out of this. So I already have it plugged in because we already saw that it powered up without catching fire. So I'm just going to plug in the output here, out left. Let's see how it sounds. Let's try and load another voice. I don't know how to do that. Let me grab the manual. I'm going to block the camera. What the hey? Took me a minute to get over there. So let's go to menu. Let's load. Here are the different voices. It's 2. That's 3. 4. Don't hear anything there. It might be longer term. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. Quiet. 10. I'm going to go ahead and load that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and plug my CV in from MIDI, see if we can make that do something. So that's interesting. Let's go back to one of these other ones. Load that. Now I'm going to plug this into my sequencer. I'm going to use the joystick. I'm going to go into the other output. Now it's poly, multi, or we'll go poly. I don't know why it went away. This is vector. And the joystick is mixing this. Turn this down for a minute while I read a little bit. Okay, so we can change oscillator banks here. You can see slight differences there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and change some modulations here. Tap mod. This is the LFO. That's a filter. Filter 2. This is the joystick. See something else? This is the envelope. Whole bunch of MIDI things in here. Now we'll do the envelope LFO. So here's the envelope we're at right now. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do it right. Go back to the envelope. Oop. Well, we'll do the LFO while we're here. Different waveforms here. There's sine, triangle, saw. Looks like 99 is the fastest. Take it back way down. Trying to get the envelope. Hold on, I don't have that quite right. Oh, I know why, because I don't have a gate signal going to it. Because of course it's not going to trigger. I'll take the gate from the sequencer. Now we got it going. And there's another gate there, and then there's the LFO, which we already did, took a look at. Then we've got mod sources and so on, and I'm not going to go into that right now because it's really complicated. I mean, sorry, it's not really complicated, it's really rich. So let's look at the oscillator banks again. So now we're in oscillator bank mode. So we've can tune the frequency on the top and oscillator levels on the bottom, which we already knew. And now we get pushing any of the bottom row knobs enable FM algorithm mode. So that's what this is. Pushing a knob will toggle the associated oscillator between carrier, series modulator, or parallel modulator. Okay. But I don't know where. See, that's the problem on this one. Oh, there it goes. I'm not quite sure how to get these lines right. Now it's going all the way through, and now we can adjust the modulation levels. Let's go a little nutty. Now it was on B. See, the mods are per oscillator bank. Unless you want to change that, you can change that somewhere around here. It's in there somewhere. Again, the manual is got a lot of stuff in it, but the bottom line is I don't know how to reload stuff to go to a different voice. Oh, okay. So we'll go to settings again and load. Go back there, load, and then that's... Now we'll go take another voice in. And as you can see, they're previewing as we're turning it. That's kind of sweet. So that's loaded. That's kind of pure. Back to the envelope, and I don't know how to do that. I'm tapping env and whatever, but I don't get it right. Now we'll take the envelope out a little bit. So as you can see, this module has a whole lot of stuff in it. More than I'm going to demo. They have demos much better than I do because they understand the box better than I do on their website, and I recommend you go look at that. Now I will say some of the soldering is really tight around those surface mount components, and you got to be really careful or else you're going to damage something. and some of the instructions were a little worded a little interestingly. I think that may be a translation issue, not sure. But in general, this has got a lot of good stuff in it. And I didn't touch on what the MIDI inputs can do. And of course, I didn't touch on what the MIDI inputs can do, but there's a lot there also to be able to control this from a MIDI controller. But that's the vector wave from RYK, and pretty good. And I hope you enjoyed the video.